Hey, I'm gonna make one of these unscripted videos. It's kind of like a challenge for me. I'm gonna make like an hour long podcast. So I have to be entertaining now. The pressure is on. This is unscripted. I didn't plan it. I'll just say what comes to mind. I was watching some YouTubers the other day, some of the big ones, and then the most recent big YouTuber that I watched was Mr. Beast. And these big YouTubers, when they give something influential, they say that you should do what you enjoy or make videos you like. So I guess I'll try to say what I like in these videos without trying to force anything. But it already seems that it's turning a little into a challenge. Okay. And then I'm gonna be determined now. I can't cut it. I have to keep going on for an hour. I got one of these mindsets that I'm going to be speaking on stage. When I was in high school and in college, I delivered some speeches. When I was in high school, it would be more like I would read an essay and present it in class. One time, I was in 11th grade in my English class. Well, it wasn't one time, it was all throughout the year. The teacher would have popsicle sticks in a jar and randomly choose names. And eventually, all the names would be chosen. And then, if your name is chosen, you have to present your essay in class. And at the end of the year, when I had my yearbook, and then I had some people sign my yearbook, and they seemed to like my speeches that I delivered. Not sure if they were being nice to me, but then the same thing happened in college when I took a public speaking class. I didn't get a yearbook, but the professor at the end of the class took a picture outside and then gave us this photograph of all the students in the class, except I wasn't there the day she took the picture. And one time I gave a speech. It was my first speech. It was a tell about some personal experience. And I talked about when my uncle took us on a cruise, me and my cousins, and we went to Alaska. But it was like high school though. I wrote the script. Basically, I wrote the essay, but in the public speaking class, I couldn't just hold the essay and read it. I was only allowed to have one index card of notes about what I wanted to talk about. So I had to be prepared. And I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes. And this time, though, I'm just winging it. There was some fun memories I remember on the cruise. Like one time in the hotel room, and all the cabins are pretty small and the bathrooms are tiny if you've never been on a cruise ship. One time we were staying up late, and then some of my cousins started telling jokes, and then it was like 1:30 at night, and I remember I was able to order room service, and I ordered a cheeseburger and fries and had it delivered after 1:30 at night. And then I think the next day I slept in. I must have been very tired, because by the time I woke up, the TV was playing, and then the SpongeBob movie was playing, and it was like 2 o'clock. And then one of my cousins came in, and he said he just woke up. I said, yeah, and I was like, no, you didn't, nobody woke me up. He wanted to let me sleep in. Okay. Now, so like I'm just sitting here. I had the idea to do this video, and because right now I'm basically broke, living in my parents' house, and then if you watch some of my older videos, I mentioned that I wanted to do a social experiment. At first I was going to make videos for 30 days, and also, if you've been watching, you notice that I trade penny stocks or small cap stocks, and I've been struggling to be patient under the PDT rule. That's basically means that if I don't have $25,000 in my account, I only get 3 day trades. And a day trade is buying and selling a stock in the same day, and all my trades are normally day trades, so I basically get only 3 day trades every week. And in a hot market, that seems like it's not enough for me. So when it started to look like it might take me 2 years to get over the PDT rule, I ended up taking some money out of my account, and I bought some business course, and then I had my mentor in the course tell me that I need to develop social skills. And I was starting to make videos at first, but then I was thinking, this doesn't replace me talking to people, so I should go out and talk to people. And then I was thinking, okay, I should get a full-time job too, to save up over the PDT rule. But then in one of the jobs that I worked at recently, in a FedEx warehouse, when I applied there, found out that someone tested positive for COVID, and then I was told by HR that on my first day of orientation I need to wear a mask because someone tested positive. And then I told her I have to wear the mask the whole day. And the HR person said, yeah. So anyway, I said that I'm not going to go then. For me, wearing the mask to receive a paycheck is like me selling my freedom for a paycheck. Okay, in 2020, I feel like this medical tyranny has developed globally. I have watched some doctors making videos on YouTube and other platforms, and they have been censored all around the world. And right now, this is just me talking unscripted, so it's not like a research essay. Right now, I don't have citations to quote from or for you to verify what I'm saying. But you can do some research, and I would recommend probably using, instead of Google or YouTube, which tends to censor doctors who speak out against any of the COVID measures, spreading misinformation, and then if their video starts going viral, they get banned. So instead of searching on YouTube or Google, you can use a search engine like DuckDuckGo, and then alternative sites instead of YouTube. Maybe you can look up on a video site that's called BitChute and find some of these doctors. Like one of them was Dr. Rashid Buttar. I remember when he was on YouTube, his YouTube got deleted. And then there was Dr. Anderson, I believe, some California doctor. He made some COVID-19 briefing video. It was on YouTube in April 2020, and his video got banned. And anyway, there was also on London Real TV some guy called Brian Rose. On his website, he interviewed one time Dr. Rashid Buttar, but he couldn't put this video on YouTube, so he has it on his website. And in his interview with Dr. Rashid Buttar, he had a panel one time and he asked questions, and one of them was, should you wear a mask? And on this panel there was over 100 doctors from all over the world, and basically they all voted no, you should not wear a mask. And Brian Rose asked them other questions, and it was almost all unanimous that these doctors were voting against the COVID measures. So for me, I'm not going to sell my freedom for a paycheck. There's other options I can do to make a living. I've already proven that I can quadruple my account in a year in trading profits. So I know if I continue to trade, I'll be financially independent. So I don't need to depend on a job and feel pressured and wear a mask. I feel like this is medical tyranny. In a dictatorship, when there's a tyrant ruler or a dictator, or even in a communist country like China, the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, I believe it's illegal to criticize the Chinese president. If you do, you can be taken to jail. And now, when we have these so-called fact checkers banning these doctors for spreading misinformation, sometimes some doctors, like Dr. Tenpenny, they just are expressing or stating facts about the adverse reactions of taking the COVID vaccine, and somehow that's misinformation. And so anyway, they get banned on the premise of spreading misinformation. And then they have these so-called fact checkers that maybe they quote some census or they quote some study, or they say, this scientific community has found that this doctor is spreading false information or information that can be harmful to the community, or misinformation, and then their video gets banned, and in some cases their whole YouTube channel or their Instagram account will get banned. So for me, that's like medical tyranny. I remember in debates, and even when I was in college, I wrote an argumentative essay, and an argumentation can be defined as a formal discussion. And I remember when debates would include an argument, a counter-argument, and a rebuttal. But what's been going on lately, or at least during the corona hype, there's been doctors that they'll say their argument, or you could think of it like the WHO, the World Health Organization, or people like Dr. Fauci will say the recommendations about the virus. And so that's like their argument, you might say. And then these doctors that disagree with it will present their counter argument. But instead of letting the public hear the counter argument, they ban the counter argument, saying it's misinformation, and then they present the fact checkers with a rebuttal, but then the public, they don't get to hear the doctor's counter argument because they get banned for misinformation. So for me, that is an attack of freedom of speech. And that's why I say what's been going on in the name of COVID is like medical tyranny, and I won't stand for it. So I never voted for people like Bill Gates or Dr. Fauci or the World Health Organization to dictate what I put in my body. These vaccines, they're experimental, these mRNA shots. We still do not know the long-term effects. And I remember I gave you some research, I said some names, so again, you can do your own research. You don't believe what I say, and you can look up some of these doctors like Dr. Tenpenny or Dr. Rashid Buttar, and go on London Real and Brian Rose's website. Maybe it's called London Real TV. And you can see he has some of these interviews with some of these doctors. And you can watch the interview with him with Dr. Rashid Buttar. And so you'll start to see it's not just one doctor that, oh, maybe, okay, this doctor's a little cuckoo. Or, oh, it's a conspiracy theorist doctor. No, it's a lot of these doctors. So anyway, that's why I ended up not going with FedEx. Because they wanted me to wear a mask. And so while I cannot vote, I didn't vote for the World Health Organization or people like Dr. Fauci to tell me, excuse me, what I should inject in my body. I can vote with my dollar, and so the way I'm voting with my dollar is that I'm not going to be employed by an employer who's imposing these COVID measures, which is like medical tyranny. So I'm not going to be working for a company and helping the employer or the CEO make money by me working there, helping the company be profitable. So that's for me voting by the dollar, and that's why I didn't work when I applied 6 months ago. I think I could have started working there and then full time, and then 6 months now would have passed, and then in about 6 more months I could have made 25,000 and gotten over the PDT rule. But I'm taking a stand for my freedom. And now, let's see. I can transition to a different topic. Let me drink some water. So I know sometimes people don't like to talk about politics or religion, but for me, I feel that if no one talks about politics or religion ever, then the media is going to be raising the next generation of voters. And the media is very biased, and I believe they have an agenda. And for example, like with COVID, you just hear one side of the narrative. Doctors that agree with Dr. Fauci or WHO, you'll hear their side, but you won't hear these other doctors and their opinions. And if especially parents never talk about politics to their children, who do you think is going to give them their political viewpoints and their beliefs about politics? The media. And maybe they might not watch the news, but I bet your preteen or teen has social media accounts like Instagram or Snapchat. And on those sites too, I remember on Instagram, at one point, when it was the attack on Capitol Hill at the time of Trump's presidency, when he got banned from Twitter, at that time on Instagram, it was like 2 weeks or a month where all hashtags you used on Instagram were all banned on the premise to helps not or stop the spread of misinformation regarding or no, actually it was before I think the attack on Capitol Hill when I forgot which event came first, but it was when Trump was saying voter fraud after the election. And so it was during that time, during the presidential election, or the upcoming election, they banned all the hashtags to prevent spreading misinformation. And in case you don't know what a hashtag is, it's the number sign and then you use a word. So if you want to search for something on Instagram, like let's say cat videos, and or if you make a cat video post and you post it on Instagram, let's say you do a cat video reel, and then if you use the hashtag cat videos, what that will do if someone searches Instagram and searches the word cat video, they can search under hashtags and they can see the top performing hashtags under cat videos, or they can see the most recent post under cat videos. So that's what a hashtag does. It helps people search for specific topics. And by banning all the hashtags, they were making it where people basically can't search anything on Instagram, only what Instagram will feed you through their feed. And they were all saying stuff like, you know, Trump's accusation of voter fraud has been disputed, or his claim of voter fraud is false. All these experts say his claim of voter fraud is false. So now I can talk about what I think about the voter fraud. So for me, I remember when one of Trump's lawyers, I forgot his name, and I'm not sure if his video is still on YouTube, but he made a point and he said that in court, when you have hundreds of eyewitnesses testifying in court and saying that they saw voter fraud, and when they testify in court, they swear under oath, and so that means they'll basically go to jail if they're caught lying under oath. And in court, when you have hundreds and hundreds of people testifying in court, that's considered evidence in court. So whenever they kept saying there's no evidence of voter fraud, that's a blatant lie. Think of it like this. Imagine jury duty. Okay, maybe if you're younger and you don't know what jury duty is, if you're not 18 yet, normally when you're 18, you might start getting summoned for jury duty. And so if you're summoned for jury duty, there might be a court case. And when there's a court case, I forgot now what the people are, but there is a one side, like let's say if someone committed a crime and someone was accused of robbing, let's say a $10,000 dollars of jewelry. So now, if you get called for jury duty, there will be a juror, and maybe if you're one of the jurors chosen, when you get summoned for jury duty, there might be you and like 11 others, and I think there might be like around 12 juries or jurors in a court. And so you might be on the bench, and then if you've seen shows like Judge Judy, there'll be maybe like an audience in the courtroom, the judge, and then there'll be like two front desks in front of the audience, and I forgot who's the plaintiff or the defendant, so I might get this wrong, but let's say like the defendant is the person who is defending the criminal, saying, no, this guy's innocent, he didn't rob the jewelry store. And then it's the defendant's job to present evidence before the jury and the court and the judge that this guy is innocent. And then if there's the plaintiff on the other side, that guy might be saying, no, this guy is guilty. And then the plaintiff is supposed to present evidence showing why this guy is guilty. And if there's hard evidence, like a video camera footage of this guy robbing the jewelry store, and he shows that in court, probably the jury, the people who get summoned to the jury, they'll all vote that, okay, it's beyond a shadow of a doubt, this guy is guilty because we saw the security camera footage of this owner, and he testified in court that he saw this guy rob the store, and then we see the camera footage and the guy's face is showing up. He didn't even wear a mask, let's say, and he robbed the jewelry store. And so most likely the jury, once they have a vote, they'll probably vote unanimously, or they'll all vote that this guy is guilty because he was caught on camera robbing the jewelry store. Oh, hold on. I gotta charge my battery. Okay. Oh, I'm blocking the lens. Whatever. The show must go on. Okay, so let's say you're in court now. Okay, so the jury will probably all vote unanimously that, yeah, we saw this guy, he was caught on camera, he's guilty. And if that's the case, the judge will rule that this guy is guilty of robbing the jewelry store. Okay? So now imagine, for some reason, how stupid it would be. Let's say if the plaintiff somehow sued this court and went to the Supreme Court, and then they decided to make it a law that if someone is caught or like if a thief, if this is some theft case, in a theft case, the owner can't use footage from his security camera in his store, that footage cannot be used in court to prove that somebody robbed him. It must be footage, that he doesn't own. Let's say if that somehow came into existence and in the law, and let's say if, the plaintiff went to the Supreme Court and they changed that and now that became law, and then the plaintiff, or let's say the defendant, I mean the guy who's defending the thief, let's say he sued the court and it went to the Supreme Court and he was able to make it now a new law that if someone is accused of robbing a store, the store owner can't use footage that he owns because maybe he might tamper with the video and, use video editing to make it look like the robber robbed his store. So it has to be footage from a security camera that's not owned by the individual or the owner of the store. So let's say if that law passed, and now let's say we go back to the case, and so now the defendant, like let's say now if the plaintiff says, we caught the thief on camera of this jewelry store, I have footage, but then let's say the defendant, says, I object, and then the judge listens to him, and then he says, this footage was footage obtained from the owner's security camera, and this new law passed that because the owner may have edited the video to make it appear that the robber, because it's his camera, his equipment, so the owner could have edited the video and made it look like the robber stole from his store. So if the defendant is defending the robber, he says, so the plaintiff cannot use this footage as evidence to convict my client of a crime or of stealing from the store because this footage was obtained from the security camera of the owner. So imagine if that was a law and then the judge, has to abide by the law. And so then he says, I'm sorry, this cannot be used in court. And then how do you think the jury would feel? They would probably say, in order for us to determine if this robber robbed from the jewelry store, we need to see the footage on the camera. Show us the footage. And we can have forensic experts study the footage, or, whatever kind of experts, to see if the video has been tampered with or not. I'm sure if you were summoned to this court and this was brought up, you would probably start siding with the plaintiff, like, this is ridiculous. Why can't we just see what's on the footage? If it's the robber stealing the store, we can bring in some forensic experts or whatever they may be called and see, did the owner tamper with this, the video? We can get the owner's laptop and see, did they tamper with these security camera videos? If not, then the thief is caught red-handed. He should be guilty and convicted of stealing from the owner. Okay, so now I use this example. So I think you now understand, if you didn't already, how a court case works, and if there's jurors, and the defendant and the plaintiff, you should understand that. So now, in my mind, something very similar like this analogy happened with the voter fraud. Okay, so imagine if it was a regular court case, and then maybe to avoid a prejudiced jury, we will have 6 people chosen that voted for Trump and 6 people that voted for Biden. Okay, so maybe half of them are Republicans and half of them are Democrats. And now imagine we have the Trump lawyer in court, and then he's bringing in these voters that were poll watchers on the Republican Party, and the Democrat also has the right to send poll watchers in the voting room too, but the Republican poll watchers were watching, and then imagine now there's the judge, or the Trump judge or attorney, whatever, saying there is evidence of voter fraud. And then imagine you're sitting in the jury, and then he starts presenting the evidence for the court, and the evidence would be these poll watchers that would be testifying. Maybe now you don't raise your hand and swear under the Bible, but they'll swear an oath. And remember, this means if they get caught lying in court, they can go to jail. Or if their testimony, they get caught lying, they can go to jail. That's how serious this is when you swear under oath and you testify in court. And so you'll start seeing hundreds of poll watchers testifying, saying stuff, swearing under oath that, yeah, we were watching the votes, but we were told to stay outside, and we were distanced so far away, and they started blocking the view, our view. And then maybe Trump's attorney, I didn't watch all these court cases, so I don't know exactly what happened, so I'm just kind of making this up. But what I do know is what was true was there was poll watchers testifying in court that there was voter fraud. Okay, so imagine now, the Trump attorneys, maybe he plays also the video of Trump showing a graph how when he was leading in most of the states, there was like an hour long of, or I forgot how many, I think it happened after midnight, but there was a temporary blackout that lasted for an hour or so. And then after the blackout happened, Biden started leading, and then on the graph, there was, if you graph the votes on the graph, how many voted for Trump and how many voted for Biden, you can see there is an unusual spike of votes that came in for Biden during the time that blackout occurred. And I remember Trump, I don't know now, since he was banned off Twitter, maybe his YouTube is banned too, but I remember Trump, when he was still president, he was saying some video and he presented this chart, and he showed that you can see that there was this spike during that blackout time. And so I believe that there were some of these poll watchers during that time also, that they were getting blocked and they weren't allowed to see what's happening. And then if you voted, on the envelope, it says your signature must match a government ID. So let's say if I'm a registered to vote, but let's say if I'm an illegal immigrant, I don't have, or then I won't be registered to vote, but let's say I get a ballot in the mail anyway. But how it should work, if I sign that paper, my envelope, after I cast my vote, and I mail in my mail-in ballot, there should be somebody that should check my signature, and then, uh, maybe they should ask, okay, do you have a driver's license or passport? Let me see your government issue US ID, and let me see, does your signature match that? And then if it doesn't match it, my ballot should be thrown out, because obviously if I sign the ballot and I can't show my driver's license or passport or some other government ID with my signature on it, I'm most likely an illegal immigrant and my vote shouldn't count. So, anyway, there were also during that time when this so called dump happened and all these votes got in for Biden during that time, when there was this temporary blackout and this unusual spike, all Biden votes, we want to question those ballots. And so imagine now there might be the Trump attorney wanting to question, okay, those ballots. So we heard now all these testimonies that they were testifying about voter fraud, and then there was even some people, if I remember correctly, testifying that they went in to vote, but then they were told that they already voted. But they know for sure that they didn't vote. And then I was told some of these signatures, there were dead people voting too, stuff like that. So all these, you could probably hear them. I think these are called affidavits. So in these court cases, they're public. So I'm not sure where to go to get the website, but I'm pretty sure if you do some research, you can get the transcripts of these court cases, and you can read the transcripts of these affidavits of these poll watchers who are testifying about voter fraud. So you'll read all this, and then maybe the attorney, imagine in the jury now, so the Trump attorney might be, in this case, the defendant for Trump, defending him like, no, he's there. Or I'm not sure how this would work, if he would be the plaintiff or the attorney, but he would be saying there's voter fraud. And then if there's the other guy, will be saying there is no voter fraud. Okay, so this guy, the Trump attorney now, might say now, like, okay, let's verify the signatures on the ballots, because let's say the other guy, imagine now you're in jury or you're in the court, and then you'll see the Trump attorney brought in one testimony after another, after another, after another. They're all testifying in court, and then on the Democrat side, or whoever's saying that there's no voter fraud, imagine that guy in court. He doesn't have any evidence except he starts quoting, and maybe he plays a news clip showing various news anchors on stations like ABC, NBC, and they're all have someone interviewing them, and they ask them, because I remember seeing video clips similar like this on the news, like someone was interviewing some NBC news anchor guy. Is there evidence of voter fraud? And the guy paused. There is no evidence of voter fraud. I saw similar stuff like on different news channels, so that's basically all the stuff that they would be, the other guy saying there's no voter fraud, that's the evidence that they would be showing. Like, okay, this news anchor is saying there's no voter fraud, or maybe they might bring up, Trump's because Trump's Twitter wasn't deleted at the time. But I remember reading whenever he would tweet something about voter fraud, sometimes those individual tweets would get deleted, or there might be fact checkers saying this claim has been disputed. And then they have the fact checkers. And then I remember when I clicked on one of the fact checkers, it basically brought up a news article which was basically the same thing, that all these experts are saying there is no evidence of voter fraud, or they're interviewing someone from the news and they all say the same thing, there is no evidence of voter fraud. So the other guy, he won't actually have any of these so-called experts coming in court and swearing under oath, the perjury of the law or whatever it's called. Like if you're caught lying, you go to jail. So none of these people are showing up in court, testifying that there is no evidence of voter fraud. The only, the guy that's saying there's no voter fraud in court, he'll just have to quote these people or quote these fact checkers or quote, some so-called voter expert saying that there is no evidence of voter fraud, and that's basically all the evidence that they'll have. And so imagine how that would look like if you're, like, even if I voted for Biden, or somebody voted for Biden, it's like I'm sure you would start to see, like, okay, at least Trump's attorney, he's having all these people testifying under oath. And then maybe, the other guy might say, or the argument might be, oh, well, Trump's a billionaire, so Trump paid all these people to testify for him. But I mean, that's like taking a big risk on Trump, because if they get caught lying, they go to jail. But anyway, you go, okay, well, the other side, they're not presenting any evidence. There isn't anybody testifying in court, swearing under oath. But let's say you go, okay, there's still a possibility. It's like he said, she said. And so how can we dispute this? How can we come to a determination? If I was on the jury, I would talk with the other jurors like, okay, it can be possible, since Trump's a billionaire, that he paid all these people to lie under court, even though I think it's unlikely, because if they get caught lying, they'll go to jail. And then seeing how the news attacks Trump, imagine that. If they had any evidence at all that Trump paid people to testify in court to say there's voter fraud, I'm pretty sure that would be easy to prove, and that would be all over Trump for that. Any slightest evidence, because the media is so biased attacking Trump. Okay, but it seems they have no evidence, just to say there is no evidence of voter fraud, and to ban his tweets that say they do, or there is. So, okay, now imagine, if I was in jury, I would go like, okay, let's settle this now. The only real way to settle this, it would be similar now, if you remember that analogy I used, like the robber. Like, okay, let's see the footage of the robber on the security camera. To find out, did he rob the store? So now in this case, okay, let's see, did Trump, pay these people to lie? If so, then they shouldn't have any problem. Let's see, during that time, during the blackout, when all these votes seem to be, dumped, and all these spike for all these Biden votes, let's look at those ballots. Let's have all these poll watchers be able to do their jobs, and let's verify the signatures on those ballots. And then, we'll see. If they're all legitimate ballots, I'll admit, like, okay, I underestimated Biden, even though he seemed to have no audience during his live speeches, while Trump's stadiums, he had thousands and thousands of people watching him live, while Biden, like, didn't seem to have anybody watching him. But, maybe I underestimated him and people, voted for Trump. And if all those signatures are legitimate, I'll admit it. Biden won, and I'll go, okay, this is democracy, and I'll shut up about voter fraud. But the fact that now we get the Democrats suing and going to Supreme Court, and they basically, you know, I forgot exactly all the laws, but they basically, from my understanding, went to the Supreme Court and they basically made it now like illegal for those signatures to be brought into question and for you to verify the signatures on those ballots. So if it was like a regular court case, I would be, in the jury, like, okay, so Trump's attorney, he has all these poll watchers testifying in court, while the other side, they're just able to cite people or fact checkers citing these so-called experts, but none of them are swearing under oath in court. So in court, their evidence is weak and lacking. And, now they're accusing us of lying or, Trump paying these people. Like, okay, to settle it once and for all, let's verify the signatures on the ballots. Like, after all that, how do you know if a ballot is illegal or not? Somebody has to verify the signatures on the ballots, how I explained earlier, and see if they match the ID. So anyway, imagine now, like, it now suddenly becomes illegal to verify those signatures. And so, like, okay, how are we going to know now for sure if the election was true or not? Okay, it doesn't make sense. If they really care about democracy, let's see those signatures on the ballots. And then I remember the Trump attorney, he brought up something like in some states, the vote was very close, and like the last 100,000 votes, like for Biden to have suddenly won in some of these states, it would be like the last 100,000 votes. They would all have to basically be all for Biden, none of them for Trump. And then the odds of that happening mathematically seems impossible. But anyway, the main thing I would say, like, like with that robber, like, okay, we need to see this is a ridiculous law. Why can't the poll watchers and why can't we in court verify those signatures on those ballots? We don't need to keep recounting them. I want to see, like, in those states that they were so close, we don't literally need to look at the last 100,000 ballots, but in that batch, let's take some of them randomly, like 100 or 1,000, and let's start verifying the signatures. By them not doing that, and all the affidavits in court of the judges, for me, that spells voter fraud. Okay, so I talked about COVID and politics mostly in this hour-long podcast. Okay, so I'll keep making these, and I want to at least get 30 hours done here. Okay, so I know some people might be triggered. You don't have to watch this. But for me, I support freedom of speech, and I can say what I want to say about politics and express my opinion. I shouldn't be banned for spreading misinformation. We're adults. Most people are adults, and let them make up their mind. I'm an advocate for freedom of speech.